yes when it comes to MSMEs, right? So that needs to evolve, because what that is doing is banks are overpricing good risk and underpricing bad risk, right? And overall, they're having a suboptimal sort of an experience lending to MSMEs. Once the subsector strategy evolves for banks, that's where this problem can be alleviated to a large extent.
Okay, so overpricing good risk, underpricing bad risk. Mr. Jha, how do you respond to that?
Yes. So one more thing which from banker's perspective I would miss out. So that I just want to tell that. See, we were just discussing till entry level borrowings. Well settled 10-year-old MSMEs, we find enhancing the limits very difficult. The turnover was 5 crore, went to 10 crore, it went to 20 crore. The profit remains same. And then it becomes very challenging to justify where the margins are going. So a good MSME should see what is their vision from 5 years to now. Depending upon scale, very small, they should see at least 2 years vision. Maybe depending upon, so if they have a clarity on some tangibility on the vision, say 5 years, 10 years, then at least the core numbers they should know. Because when we talk about numbers, they ask us, sir, wo to CA batayega. Business they are doing, numbers CA will tell. So if they want certain limits, they will revise the CMA data. So that is very essential that in MSME should see that where they see themselves from 5 years from now or 10 years from now, and whether they need banking support for this growth. So they need to build their books accordingly. And that then where the bankers are there, they very willingly, they will reach out to lend you more. So this is very important aspect for even existing MSME borrowers.
But in terms of risk pricing and in dealing with different subsectors, are new credit underwriting models
Yeah,
emerging?
we were discussing before this session also that way, I mean, we also do not do that kind of analysis as of yet. But yes, within this overall sectors only, there are restricted sectors where the pricing will be little higher. But more or less, most of the MSMEs are not impacted by that same. So it's not really a big thing for now.
Is there a need for customized products for MSMEs?
Yeah, definitely. Now it is like for supply chain. Say many are going for channel financing. Channel financing for like many vendors are going for car suppliers, car dealers. So there are channel financing products. Each banks have dedicated products for that, and that is as the understanding of banks are deepening, and they are going into specialized products. Becomes the more the products are structured, it sells better. From the field perspective, we see that if the products are very crystallized, structured, then the field people also don't need required to understand the intricacies of the things, and they when they contract with the customers, the borrowers, it really gels nicely. Yeah.
Okay, but in terms of my question on whether new credit underwriting models are emerging or different methods?
Yeah, see, up to 2 crore basically now we are going digital. So most of the process are going to digital, and very soon up to 5 CR also it will be going like that only. But again, question will come that all the compliances and all the benefits of this will again go to those who are really in compliance. So that remains very essential question. Even cash-based lending also products are, public sector banks are, it's an emerging space where cash-based lending, because as books are not being maintained so nicely, so sometimes cash-based lending always gives the comfort, and that's a space which will definitely emerge. Like pre-approved personal loan in a sector where public sector banks were not doing well. For last 2-3 years, pre-approved personal loan is doing excellent, totally digital lending, and that is doing very nicely. So this is also one space which will grow. The cash-based lending.
Three steps to pay off credit card debt faster. High credit card debt can be one of the biggest financial stressors we face in our lives.
Proper chain which understand the issues, then they prepare a proper board note where all the issues are addressed and then the proper decision making is taken care. But while for a smaller loan, so much of bandwidth that the bankers also doesn't have, and so much of itna hamare paas, we don't have so much of thing which is there. It means there are two types of customers which are definitely under stress in terms of MSME. One is undecided customer, another is unapproved customer. It means there can be only customers who can only get a software generated loan. There will be a customer which cannot get a software generated loan. In terms of all the cash flow based lending, in terms of bank BRE, in terms of all the processes, I think so in case if any bank has not adopted it, it's a matter of time, they will still adopt it. But in terms of digital adaptation, digital lending, I think so we are far more advanced, and there are some banks which is just here and there. We should be there. So only problem is that whether the MSMEs which cannot pass through these screens, whether we have the manpower, physical manpower possible to understand the issue and then to take care of that credit.
But why don't they pass through these screens?
They cannot pass through because, as I told you, in the software, the first stage is that you have to pass through the KYC document. So second, he has to submit all the documents. The third, he has to submit all the business income statements. So he has to submit screen 1, screen 2, screen 3, screen 4. All these document has to be submitted one by one. So you have to pass through every screen. In case if you stop at every screen, the loan application, it doesn't go through also at that point of time. Regarding compliance, which you were saying, I will just share 2-3 personal examples of mine, because since I am a startup and I have done 2 companies. In Resurgent India Limited, when we started in approximately after 3-4 years, we were told by my accountant, sir, we should get a PF registration. I told PF registration, theek hai, you can go and apply for any PF registration. So he hired one consultant who was doing the PF consultant. As soon as we filed the PF application, the bombardment of question came, why you are not PF impaneled for last 3 years? This was the first question. Then give us all the record for last 3 years. Why? I told, sir, we have recently started the company. I was not applicable under PF and other thing. So it took us another next 2 years, not for the PF empanelment, just to convince them, sir, that my PF empanelment was not applicable when I applied at that point of time. Regarding what the Bhardwaj is told, if we apply for a fire or apply for a pollution license, definitely they don't have the bandwidth to come and check it. Problem is another more. There was one client whom we were working for he was asking for a loan, so we were working. So bank told कि इसका fire license नहीं है, fire license लेके आइए. When we applied for a fire license people came and inspected the factory, and they told us so many things that we have to shift to a new factory at all, or we cannot operate in that factory itself. So my loan, which was at a last stage of sanction, only thing the sanction letter only pointed out, sir, you just apply for a fire license. Sir, my entire company and existence came at stake because of that fire license approval. I was operating for last 20 years without that approval. As soon as I applied it, the authority came to know that I exist. Fire authority came to know कि यहाँ पे एक factory है, वो exist करती है, sir. The point that it came to know that I exist here, I just became a scapegoat for them. And they told us so many things to ramp up in the factory itself, that either I have to shut down the factory or I have to renovate the entire factory. So I have to apply a new loan to the bank, not for the loan which I was applying for. I have to apply for a new loan to a bank कि sir हमको नई factory बनानी है, पुरानी factory बंद करनी है. So sir, these are some of the issues. I think so कि compliance के लिए there are 2 more important things, sir. We are also helping companies in doing the private equity transaction. When you do a private equity, so the other investor, they do a due diligence on you. So there are other big 4 and there are other agencies in the due diligence. In last 15 years, sir, all the big companies which has gone into private equity transaction, either through us or through anybody, the taxation or the compliance due diligence, आज तक ऐसी कोई company नहीं मिली है where there is not less than 100 page of non-compliance has come in. So it means if all the compliant companies, all the good companies which are in the process of raising private equity or going for an IPO, In case if they hire a consultant for getting a due diligence, they will always get that report. So it means 100% of the company, 40% of the promoter's time, and for an MSME I have calculated and seen that approximately 18 to 20 lakhs of the money every year that micro company has to spend in case if they want to get basic compliance. I'm not even talking about ki usko SOPs and Establishment Act, all these basic 4 or 5 things if he need to comply, he has to spend that much amount of money, and 30 to 40% of the promoter's time that he has to spend to get themselves at least for the basic compliance factor. So these are the two things, and 90% of our
Welcome to the latest episode of Kotak 811, आपके finance का +1. Do you remember the report cards teachers maintained in school for tracking your performance? Well,
which I would like to pose to all panelists, starting from Bhushan. 30 seconds each. If there is one reform which you would like to institute, for the betterment of the MSME sector, what would that be?
In terms of reform, if there was one thing, and the challenge because it's credit oriented, I think that needs to be attacked more. I think cluster development has been spoken about. I think the entire ecosystem needs to work on the cluster development bit. If you look at global examples, there is a lot of sharing that happens between MSMEs when it comes to procurement. Banks can also benefit from a cluster-based approach. They'll have more familiarity, benchmarking in doing their lending. So cluster-based approach for the entire ecosystem is what needs to be focused on.
Mr. Kumar?
So, raise the money, raise the fund in good times so that you don't have to run around here and there in bad times, because in MSME sector it always happens reverse. Whenever you are in bad times, you go out and no investor is ready to give you money. So I say reverse the approach. Whenever you have good time, raise the money so that you can survive better in bad times.
Thank you. Mr. Bharat?
Well, competition in India in the factor markets, whether it is access to finance, but particularly raw material. Today the situation is this, that we were talking about delayed payment. Whether you give whether you empower facilitation councils, whether you do something in income tax, or whether you create a trades platform, it is not going to solve the problem. The problem is actually different, and it is that whether it's a large company, which is your buyer, or it is government, it gives a damn to pay you in time. You can't do anything for this. Larger companies in India are protected by high customs duties, whether it is auto, 50 to 100%, no competition. Whether it is iron and steel, copper, aluminium, plastic raw material and polymers, all of them put together, which are largely the leaders of the supply chains and buyers of MSMEs, they are completely protected, they give a damn, they don't have any competition. If you create competition in the factor markets, then they would value their suppliers and pay them in time and train them. Like, for example, it is happening in Korea, whether it is happening in Japan, in Taiwan, even in China.
Shikari?
I think it's time just we start thinking in a different way. My thought process would be that how we can start incentivizing the good MSMEs instead of talking about how the bad MSME can becoming good. How can we just start making the role model for the good MSME? Good MSME doesn't mean that he's paying loan on time. He's paying electricity bill on time. He might be paying telephone bills on time. He might be paying all his labors on time. Can CRISIL prepare a rating model for all these types of parameters, and we can start rating the MSMEs, and we can start advertising those MSME, and we can start giving them some sort of benefit, maybe through GST or maybe through income tax. Thank you.
I would suggest that MSME education fund, something sort, where can be kept in CSR, and various chambers are there. In Delhi also I found that they are doing wonderful work. They are bringing bankers and MSME on various platforms. And that can be encouraged in a very more professional manner. Across India, we may have few organizations, the sub-bodies, where MSMEs can freely go understand what is the latest thing, and very real things they can understand and get to know how they can make their proposals bankable from bank perspective and the compliance side as well. That will facilitate many, I am sure 30-40% bankable proposals are not coming to the banks at least. So those will be easily coming to us, and that will help the chain moving fast.
Right. So we are out of time. Thank you to all the panelists for your insights and comments. Hope you found the session useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ravi, and all the panelists for that very interesting panel discussion. Would request Ravi to please give a token of our appreciation to all the panelists, please. Thank you very much. High compliance costs, financial knowledge gap and credit financing definitely remain as major challenges for MSMEs to scale up. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all are tweeting with the hashtag MC.
सर मैंने स्काईस्केप में घर ले लिया है।
स्काईस्केप वही है ना, शाम होते ही मच्छर टेक ऑफ कर देते हैं और मेट्रो का काम चलने से पूरी टर्बुलेंस रहती है वहाँ, है ना?
आपने कहाँ देख लिया?
99
as much as possible. Indian MSMEs are unique in their entrepreneurial spirit. We are witnessing a reinvention where many of them are getting transformed as digital businesses. The key to the long-term growth of the MSME sector is through digitization and finding new ways to connect with customers and expand reach. E-commerce has played a transformational role for sellers and MSMEs in recent years, especially during the pandemic, by providing new avenues for their growth and expansion. But this is often not a seamless process, as they use a combination of semi-automated and manual business processes. Through our next panel, we will try to explore how MSMEs can surmount the dual challenges of digital marketing and e-commerce, and how digital platforms are enabling micro entrepreneurs. For this, I would like to invite Moneycontrol's editor, Chandra Srikanth, to moderate the panel.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to invite the speakers on the stage. Mr. Dhiresh Bansal, the CFO of Meesho, Mr. Dinesh Agarwal, the CEO of IndiaMart, Ms. Nupur Goenka, the Executive Director of Tally Solutions, and Mr. Ravi Sood, the President of Badli Industrial Estate Association. Is Mr. Sood in the room? Thank you all very much. Yeah, please sit, please sit. It's very encouraging to see a full house on a weekday evening. We were really scared because it's, Bakrid tomorrow. We thought people will go away on a really long weekend. But it's very encouraging to see a full house throughout the session, and thank you all very much for making it to the Money Control Policy Next Summit. No discussion these days is complete without technology and its impact on companies. And it's going to be the same with MSMEs as well. We heard the Union Minister Narayan Rane talk about how the aim is that MSMEs will comprise 50% of the economy in 5 years, from 40% now. So, Mr. Agarwal, if I can start with you, India Mart is almost synonymous with the MSME story in terms of how you've powered micro, small and medium enterprises in India. What are the key focus areas for MSMEs in the coming 2-3 years, as we see more digitization happening? I think I saw an IMAI data point recently which said India's internet users, are going to rise to 900 million by 2025 from 750 to 770 million now.
See, obviously, this mobile phone and internet adoption helps the entire population to become digital. Whether it is communicating with family members, whether it is sharing photos, or whether it is making payments, day-to-day payments. And nowadays, technology is not such a big taboo because everybody has used technology during the lockdown, either because of the Zoom, because of the mobile phone, and most of the newer generation over the last 10 years is very comfortable with technology. So I think with this 500, 600 million to 900 million jump that we are going to see is going to expand the buyer base dramatically, because currently the MSMEs who are looking for technology for marketing of their products, finding newer markets, finding newer buyers. I think that is going to increase multifold. Also, the newer people who are coming onto the technology platforms, whether it is mobile phone or whether it is India Mart or Meesho or Tally, most of these people are highly comfortable in doing digital transactions. We
offline-focused businesses to on the house of how to start business online. What are the things that you will face if you are online versus you were offline? So a market like Tirupur, for instance, where traditionally everyone has been very offline-focused. How do you break that mental barrier that, look, online is here and it's here to stay, and you have to kind of start trusting? The third is around just making sure that their problems, challenges are being addressed properly, and I think that will go a long way in sort of developing trust on the platforms.
Got it. Mr. Agarwal, I don't know if you have the answer to this, but the second part of what Mrs. Sood said, which is the children of MSME owners do not want to run these factories anymore. They perhaps want to join startups like Meesho or IndiaMart or Tally. How do you make MSMEs more aspirational? How do you make them more attractive?
Yes, there are few cases like that. So there are two kind of set of people. One who hate their own family business, and one who love their family business. That my children is going to take over this, and
I think Nupur belongs. We know which category she belongs.
So there are both sides of it, and over a period, these things will settle down. I don't think. Yes, brick and mortar is very important. Hand holding is very important. So at IndiaMart, we just don't do an online support. We provide on the field internet consultant who comes and visit you and help you, because otherwise you might be able to fulfill the buyer side of demand with 10,000 suppliers, but if you want to enable 10 million suppliers, I think this point is very valid, that MSMEs need hand holding. Tally has done such a super job with the Tally Education Partners through the Tally Education Partners. So I think that part is very, very valid. In terms of trust, there are various mechanisms like ratings and reviews are being done. OTP-based verification is being done. One of the things that I've been waiting from go ahead from the government. Because yes, Aadhaar-based authentication leads to a privacy issue, but I think a PAN-based authentication, if that can be given, that can lead to at least the seller side verification very good. Because PAN or GST, because GST, PAN is GST is based upon PAN. So because currently there is no way to bridge the impersonation gap. So you can have a phone number OTP verified, email OTP verified, but the GST number or the PAN number is separate, So just like Jandan Aadhaar mobile, now that the PANs are connected with the Aadhaar and all that, if a PAN-based verification mechanism can be given, PAN to mobile, I think that can solve a lot of trust issues on the marketplaces.
Got it. Nupur, Mr. Agarwal mentioned, in terms of educating and hand-holding MSMEs, how it's not just online, but also offline. So, what can platforms, what can, product providers, software providers do to surmount some immediate challenges in terms of digital literacy, warehousing, inventory management, cash flow concerns?
So I would actually go back to
once they are onboarded.
Right. So I would actually go back to the first point about access. So if I think about Tally, I think one of our biggest strengths is actually our partner network across India. And this for us means that across almost 95% of India, our customers and small businesses don't have just a website in front of them, they have a face in front of them. And I think, in my view, for this sector, I think that is one of the keys. I don't see it personally over the next few months or years moving into pure digital yet. And I think this is not just about access to technology, but some of the other points that you made. I think it is about access to information, access to support. When someone is in front of you having a cup of chai and helping you with onboarding, data migration, support issues, etc. I think that is a very, very big unlocking factor. I did want to make a point about the digital literacy, though, because I have just a view about it. What I find fascinating, actually, is not, I think it is slightly easier to think about the problem as an education problem, of giving somebody a software product or giving somebody technology and trying to solve it through education. But what I find fascinating, and the problem I think I've fallen a little bit in love with, is how do you think about creating technology without the prerequisite of digital literacy?
Something which is more intuitive, right?
Yeah, intuitive is one way to put it. So one of the first Tally customers that I ever met while I was in college actually, he had bought a computer just to use Tally. And he actually had no idea how to operate the computer, which I found super interesting. So the only thing the partner had taught him was how to switch on the computer, how to open Tally, and then he'd run his business. And by the end of the day, save, exit Tally, switch off the computer. Literally did not use the computer for anything else. And I don't know if the word intuitive would capture that feeling. And I think that for technologists is just a very, very difficult but very interesting problem to solve.
Right, right. That's an interesting point. Dinesh, the other thing that I wanted to understand, how can e-commerce platforms really help MSMEs in terms of expanding support to local, regional brands? How do you make it a level playing field?
Yeah, I think that's the key challenge that's going to be there in the next, let's say, decade or so. How do we make sure that while organization of commerce is happening, it's not getting concentrated into just a few pockets.
It doesn't become an oligopoly of sorts.
So I think there are a few things which MSMEs do really well, right? One is they have a lot of appetite to innovate and bring in new sort of products, technologies. So for example, in e-commerce, what we see is whenever there is a new trend that's catching on, typically the MSMEs, the fashion MSMEs, for instance, are the ones which are first to get on that trend quickly and be able to produce, maybe not in very large quantities, but in smaller quantities. So they bring a lot of variety or assortment to
Give
a
us
platform.
an example of it.
Example could be, let's say there is some new trend, some actress has worn something that is trending, the whole, let's say, fast fashion thing that has happened, be it in China. And
Welcome to the latest episode of Kotak 811, आपके finance का +1. Do you remember the report cards teachers maintained in school for tracking your performance? Well, banks also maintain a similar report card.
with lower overheads is the second important thing that they're able to kind of deliver on. So I think the next sort of challenge in online will be to kind of build on these strengths and be able to actually use that to compete with, let's say, some of the larger players and brands, etc.
Got it. Ms. Sood, from a regulatory perspective, compliance perspective, what more needs to be done in terms of the compliance requirements or, the policies currently?
Well, that's a very good question, but not an easy one to answer because...
Are there so many issues that it's not easy to answer?
Actually, there are so many that I can't even begin to answer it because, you see, from the beginning of your operations till the end, there are so many compliances that, the MSME is fed up. I told you why the next generation doesn't want. The reason is that children grow up and see their mothers and fathers who are managing their business. If you are a salaried person, whether you are in private or you are in government, once you come home, you are home. But when you are running an enterprise and a manufacturing one at that, you are never, offline or you are never off duty. You are 24/7, you are always there. There is a, saying in our circle, the customer says, how are you? Pulta hai na wo. So he'll say, Mr. Sood, acha. I'll say, I'm in hospital. So he'll say, please deliver my goods before dying. So the life is so tough. And actually, we have written from our association to the Prime Minister of India. I don't know if it ever got to him. They had started a scheme of lateral infusion from the industry. So I said, let's have it other way around. Why don't you send your secretaries and, you know, additional secretaries, deputy secretaries to the MSMEs? Let them spend a day or two with us. Let them see how the factories run. And we offered them that our Badali Industrial Estate, which incidentally is India's cleanest industrial estate. We were awarded by the Ministry of MSME as India's cleanest industrial estate. I said, we offer you that let us make our industrial estate as your laboratory. You put your scheme to test, send your people here, and let them face the music. Because you see, when the policy makers you have so many kinds of reports coming, they sit in their air-conditioned room and come out with a report. So, which is, they are not, you know, connected with the reality. So, what I want to say is that there is an immense possibility. It is very heartening to see that our Prime Minister say that he is, you know, people, you know, governments used to make laws, he is now undoing the created laws. But such a lot of things have to be done that it is really, you know, one finds himself or herself in a hopeless situation. You take it any aspect, whether it is labor laws, other laws, there are so many compliances that at the end of the day, you say कि भाई मेरा काम करवा दो, जो आपकी दक्षिणा है वो हम दे देंगे, आप हमारा काम कर दीजिए. That is the slogan. तो वो चीज जब तक हम नहीं उसको एड्रेस करेंगे, we have to, you know, start from scratch. We have to, you know, जैसे control alt del होता है कंप्यूटर में, ये जो laws concerning the MSMEs, we have to do that and start afresh.
Controlled. Okay. Mr. Agarwal, you know, one other game changer that many people are talking about is the ONDC, the Open Network for Digital Commerce. Do you think that could be a game changer for small sellers in India, and how?
I would certainly hope that it becomes as useful as UPI is. You know, but before that, I think OCEN has a lot more in pipeline, because it's a purely digital information-only platform. On the ONDC, the complexity goes further, because there are delivery of the goods and things like those involved. I think the first adoption of the ONDC would happen on the purely digital nature of transactions, whether it is ticketing or whether it is hotel booking or whether it is cab booking or you know, food delivery, which has been sorted. But once it catches on, I think it can be very powerful, because obviously a public digital infrastructure which reduces the cost for everybody. So in general, on a theory, it looks all good. UPI has proven this, that it can be done on a scale,
population scale,
and at a population, at every village and every sabji wala and every online store or every large superstore. So I think ONDC and OCEN, I would rather believe that the account aggregator and OCEN, where there is a digital transfer, you know, interchange of data, digital interchange of document, that is far more easier and can have a bigger impact. And then followed by ONDC. ONDC again for digital goods, then physical goods, then B2B, then many other things.
Got it. Hot anymore. So why do you think that is, and you know, what software do MSMEs need really at the end of the day?
So that's a slightly broad question, but let me try to answer it in this way. I think when it comes to the MSME sector, and everyone in this room knows the sheer diversity that is there in the sector, I think the approach to creating technology is really about creating the right technology for the MSME, meaning that they should not require to change the way they run their business in order to adopt your technology. It should be the other way around. And I think a lot of companies and a lot of startups did miss that, despite the initial run that we perceived, which meant that there were so many products in the market which were demoable but were not really usable. So once you were in front of a business owner, the product was fantastic, but once you exit the door and the owner starts running the business and they start using the product, that's when issues started surfacing. And again, it goes back to the access, potentially lack of support, that starts creeping in. And the second something becomes more of a friction rather than a lubrication to your business, you will reject it. So I think it was more, I see it more as the approach you use in order to design and develop technology.
Got it. Got it. We are running out of time, so I'm just going to ask each of you. We're calling the session MSMEs and the decade. So one big prediction or trend that you foresee this decade or decade. I think I'll start with Mr. Sood.
Well, I see a great future there, and I see that the entire spectrum of MSMEs will go a sea change, both in their working and in their outlook, in another decade or so. And there is a need to simplify things and, make security higher, as I've already said. And well, the next decade is for technology, and MSME has everything to gain from it.
Dinesh?
So I think, in our view, maybe about 2 million of the 64 million MSMEs today, work online. Our expectation is that number starts reaching almost 70–80% of the entire, base of MSMEs, and the base itself should grow. And a lot will go into that. It will mean simpler technologies for people to use. It'll mean credit, which should be available on tap versus kind of really making an effort to do that. So that's our expectation and hope.
Okay. Nupur?
I would actually make 2 points. One is off of the point Amit made in the previous panel, that today, even if you have an SME that is digitized in various aspects of their business, the business data is still isolated. They're still islands. And I think if we can see how connectivity for business data as opposed to individuals can be transformed, I think the way businesses transact with each other can completely change. And I think the second thing I would say is actually for software providers. I think we'll see a huge push and a huge rush, at least I'm hopeful for it, of the war cry of made in India and made for the world.
Mr. Agarwal?
See, I see technology eliminating many roadblocks. You asked about the level playing field. The earlier non-digital media, whether it is newspaper or whether it is television, or they always favored big people. MSMEs could not really afford those media. Because of the digital media, platforms like Meesho, platforms like IndiaMart, platforms like Google,